What's going on, y'all? Look, if you watched my last video on Jimmy Kimmel and the First Amendment, you know exactly what the hustle is here. The math always add up the same way. Now, just a few nights ago, Kevin Hart had a roast special on Netflix. And I didn't watch the whole thing, but I've seen some clips, some short videos of it. And to be honest, I never really understood roast or insult comedy, which is why I don't watch it. I feel that they go too far sometimes to where it makes me uncomfortable. Because to me, comedy is supposed to make you feel good. It's supposed to be a stress reliever. When you sit down to watch comedy, you want to laugh and unwind and forget about your problems for a minute, not sit there feeling uncomfortable, angry, or upset because someone is up there being nasty just for shock value. And I truly believe that you can be funny without being mean spirited. And like I said, people love to hit you with that old phrase, oh, lighten up, it was just a joke. Yeah, okay, it's just a joke until they start roasting you or one of your dead relatives or friends. Because one of the biggest controversial moments of that night was Tony Hitchcliffe. I think that's his name. And for those who don't know who that is, there's a reason for that. He's a conservative comedian who uses comedy to cover his racism. He was the one who made that joke about Puerto Ricans are trash and made racist jokes about black folks at Trump's rally a couple years ago. But anyway, he gets up on that stage telling jokes about Kevin Hart. And then he says something like, the black community is so proud of you. And right now, George Floyd is looking up at us all, laughing so hard, he can't breathe. Now think about that. He used the literal final words of a man who was murdered under a police officer's knee as a punchline for a room full of millionaires. And what did that political crowd from the right do? They ran to his defense screaming, oh, come on. It's a roast, thick skin. You can't counsel him. It's the First Amendment. You know, they want total immunity when it's a white comic up there mocking black trauma. But like I told y'all before, check the hypocrisy. These are the exact same folks who demand protection for their own side. Because remember a few months ago when that whole Charlie Kirk thing happened in Utah, Texas? Jimmy Kimmel had made a joke about Trump's reaction to it. And boom, the show got canceled for a week. They shut it down, and then they tried to get the FCC to pull ABC's broadcast license over a Jimmy Kimmel monologue. When they get offended, a joke is a national security threat, and they want to use federal policy to put a network out of business. But when a white comedian makes a mean-spirited, disrespectful joke about a murdered black man, they tell us to just change the channel. Because like I said the last time, why is thick skin only required for the black community? And the craziest part is that after Tony said that was when Kevin Hart and a bunch of other people on that stage were laughing and falling out. And that brings me to Kevin Hart, because seeing Kevin sitting on that stage laughing and falling out to a joke about a man suffocating under a cop's knee, that was kind of hurtful and painful to watch. You know, he did get offended by Jeff Ross's Jumanji joke, but that's besides the point. But with this one, that shows you the dangerous game that these multi-billion-dollar corporate celebrities play. Because on one hand, they want to stand with the culture, but on the other hand, they're so terrified of being called woke or sanitized that they would platform and normalize anti-black rhetoric just to keep their Hollywood street cred. And by laughing like that, Kevin Hart basically validated the joke. You know, he let a room full of millionaires turn black trauma into a corporate circus for Netflix, while the family of George Floyd got to sit there and watch their loved ones' tragedy being used for entertainment. And this ain't even the first time we've seen this hustle, because I remember not too long ago, there was this fat black dude, a comedian named David Lucas, who made a joke about George Floyd during one of his sets and caught a whole bunch of heat for it. And the defense is always the same, always just comedy. We're trying to heal through laughter. But let's be for real. There's a difference between healing and just being disrespectful for a viral moment. And that's where a lot of people get this shit wrong. Comedy and keeping it real don't mean going around saying offensive shit to people. Because like me, I don't do that. I don't put people down. I don't generalize race. I'll never make fun of somebody's death. I'm not a mean-spirited person, but I am blunt and honest and will call things out that ain't right and say things that need to be said that's necessary. Not just saying them to hurt or offend people. Because with the opposing side, I say what I got to say, but there's a limit. And that roast was off limits because it wasn't just one side attacking George Floyd, because look at what else happened at the exact same Kevin Hart roast. Pete Davidson gets up on stage and takes a shot at Tony Hinchcliffe by bringing up Charlie Kirk, making this graphic, mean-spirited punchline about the man getting shot. Now the right-wing media is outraged, demanding apologies for Charlie Kirk's family and talking about how disgusting it is to joke about an assassination like that. And you know what? They're right. I mean, I wasn't a Charlie Kirk fan, but I can agree that joking about a man being killed is foul. But check the hypocrisy. You know, the same political crowd that has the right to be furious at Pete Davidson for mocking Charlie Kirk's death is the exact same crowd defending Tony Hinchcliffe for mocking George Floyd's death. When it's their guy, it's a tragedy that needs a federal investigation. But when it's a black man, you know, they tell us to lighten up. It's just a roast. And that's the real danger when these roasts cross the line into hate speech. They take something that's supposed to bring people joy and comfort. They turn it into a weapon to push this toxic double standard. And with the Jimmy Kimmel situation, we might say it's easy to defend Jimmy Kimmel because people view Trump a certain way, so the jokes seem justified. But even if you don't like a politician, you still can't stand for hate speech. And Jimmy Kimmel didn't even do hate speech. He was making a light roast about Trump's age, the same way comedians have always mocked Joe Biden, John McCain when he was alive, and every other leader in history. Kimmel's joke wasn't attacking anybody's humanity or mocking a murder. It was misinterpreted and taken the wrong way, and it was used as a political weapon by the administration after a tragedy occurred that Saturday night. He meant something completely different. But whether it's Tony Hinchcliffe mocking George Floyd, David Lucas chasing a viral moment, or Pete Davidson joking about assassination, using real world blood and tragedy to get a cheap laugh is just plain mean-spirited. And the fallout right now is hidden because, for example, George Floyd's family spoke out about it. They called it tasteless, and they called it a major setback for the culture, pointing out how hurtful it is to see a white comedian have this weird obsession with making light of a tragedy. And I've seen where even Steven Jackson, that former basketball player, the NBA star, who was cool with George Floyd, they was close friends, but he stepped up on social media to shut down the whole "it's just a joke" defense. He reminded everybody that humor feels a lot different when it's your own loved one's murder being used for entertainment. And he's right, because everything is funny until it happens to you. And that brings us right back to the core issue. Free speech is supposed to be about the right to express your ideas, challenging the government, and debating tough topics without being thrown in jail. It's supposed to be a tool that's meant to protect the powerless. But what happened on that stage wasn't, some deep intellectual critique. It was putting on this mask called comedy to mock black trauma for shock value. When a joke or punchline is targeting a community's pain just to go viral and cause a lot of hurt, that crosses the line from edgy humor straight into hate speech territory. And the problem today is that people are trying to use free speech as a legal shield to justify saying the most offensive shit possible without facing any social consequences. And I mean, you got the right to speak your mind, but when you use that right to dehumanize someone else and turn a tragedy into a circus, don't be acting confused when the community stands up and calls it for what it really is, which is hate. And that's why I told y'all in my last video, if I don't like a content creator, or if a comic or comedian's being nasty, I don't use the system to cancel them. I just click off and stop giving them my attention. That's consumer power. But don't let them confuse a late night routine joke about age with a mean-spirited attack on tragedy, and then claim it's all under the same, which is free speech, because it ain't. But that's all I want to say, folks. This is Big Brother's Perspective signing out. I'm out. Peace.